All right, the New Orleans Pelicans are in the playoffs after two unlikely heroes lead them to a win over the Sacramento Kings. Now, the big question is, will Zion Williamson play? It's a live post-game episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans at NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, here with y'all right after we are live after the Pelicans beat the Sacramento Kings for the sixth time, 105-98, made us sweat it out at the end, but they are in the playoffs. It took 84 games, but they are there. The 8th seed taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder. That series is starting on Sunday. We'll have a lot of coverage for you with all of that. So make sure you become an everydayer of Locked On Pelicans. This is the perfect time. We are the #1 Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know about this team. I'm going to have a crossover with the host of Locked On Thunder. You're going to get insight you won't get anywhere else. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join almost 10,000 Pelicans fans. Let's hit that number on YouTube as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I got a competitive side and I'm a big fan of Monopoly Go, the hit mobile twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. This game didn't go like we had thought. You know, I talked a lot in the preview episode for this that posted technically today as well about what it would take to win. Big game from Brandon Ingram, big game from CJ McCollum. That's not what happened in this one. It was unlikely heroes that got the Pelicans the win over the Sacramento Kings. But when you look at this game and how it went down, this is what the Pelicans have done all season long, particularly to the Sacramento Kings, and they did it again. The bench stepping up. The Pelicans started very slowly in this one. They really struggled in that first quarter before finding a little bit of rhythm at the very end, but they scored just 22 points. Enter Jose Alvarado, enter Naji Marshall, and these were the difference makers in the game. I'm just knocking everything around here in front of me in a live episode. We may do a bonus segment as well for y'all to talk and with y'all and answer your questions here. Naji Marshall off the bench, plus 17. Jose Alvarado off the bench, plus 11. Even Larry Nance Jr. was great in this game, plus 11. The starters were a little bit ineffective in this one, and it was the bench to the rescue once again. I don't know how that's going to go necessarily against the Oklahoma City Thunder, but right now we are just happy that this team is in the postseason, right? That's all we care about. We'll look at that series a little bit more in depth coming up in the next segment or two here, but I want to focus on this game for the moment. So it was Jose Alvarado and Naji Marshall, with the team kind of stuck in the mud a little bit, struggling to find their rhythm, turning the ball over a lot, playing very indecisive. You put in those guys who have boundless energy as they've done all season long. They lead this team. They bring the energy when the starters just didn't have it. I don't know how sustainable it is, but who cares? Who cares? You just got into the postseason. We're going to turn the camera down here a little bit. And that's all that ultimately matters in what we want. They were needed in this game. Jose, with his defense, with the energy that he brought, was as important as anything this Pelicans team brought in this game. He was only 4 of 8 for 10 points. It doesn't feel like a lot, but 0 turnovers, 5 rebounds for a dude that, look, I'm 6'1", 6'2". I'm much taller than Jose Alvarado. He had 5 rebounds in an elimination game. Think about that for a second. 2 assists, 2 steals. He hit the 3 that sent the Smoothie King Center into a frenzy. That's what you needed in this game. Energy. And New Orleans and their starters just didn't have it, as has been the case all season long. When you saw Naji Marshall get early minutes in this game, I kind of loved it. And I was there with my buddy Jeremy, who has season tickets with me to this game. And when Naji Marshall stepped in, I said, you know what? Just add some chaos into this because what the Pelicans are doing isn't working. They were turning the ball over a lot in the first quarter. They had 6. They were trying to play through Jonas Valanciunas. And while he had 6 points, 5 rebounds, and that looks good, 3 of those rebounds were off his own misses, and he was 3 of 8 from the field. It wasn't working. You just needed a jolt of something else. It's a little annoying that the bench needs to bring the energy, but he did, and that's ultimately what matters, and the Pelicans got the win because of it. Look, Jose Alvarado is an unsung hero for this team all season long, and when you think about his story, it's kind of wild. Undrafted, he's undersized. A lot of y'all, and look, Jose, I love you. Clearly, I love you. I don't mean this as a knock. A lot of y'all probably watching and listening to this show right now are taller than him. That's not an ideal trait in the NBA, but he's had to fight so hard for his spot here, and he just proved his value in this game. You know, there was a thing that happened earlier on in the year, and it was that game against Dallas when no one of importance played for the Pelicans, right? No Zion, no BI, no CJ McCollum, and they ended up winning that game because you had a massive breakout game for Jordan Hawkins, who didn't play in this one. And when that happened, Jose Alvarado lost minutes. And what I've been told was he was in the locker room kind of despondent a little bit, just knowing his place in the rotation was done, and maybe his place in the NBA was done. This is a guy who's making $1.8 million this year. He's going to make under $2 million next year. And in these 2 games against the Lakers, against the Sacramento Kings, he had a bigger role than players making $30+ million. That is incredible. To go through a moment when maybe your career was in jeopardy, and for him to step up like he did and rise to the occasion, next man up, right? Just always be ready. That is such a credit to him. He's been one of their most efficient players. One of the things I've harped on, if you're an everydayer, this whole season is win your minutes. We can get into all of the analytics we want, but one of the things I've kind of come around on is individual plus minus when you look at the box score. Are you winning your minutes when you're out there on the court? At the end of the day, that's your job as an NBA player. Jose Alvarado has done this repeatedly all season long. Even when I don't think he was going to do it, when me and others were doubting him, he has just proven us wrong every single time. That's a credit to him. They don't win this game without him, at all without him, right? The offensive starters were not good. Look at their plus minus. This was a lineup that has killed the Sacramento Kings, but Brandon Ingram, Trey Murphy, Valanciunas, Herb Jones, CJ McCollum. BI was a +1. Trey was a +6. Jonas was a -4. Herb Jones was a -14. CJ was a +7. None of those guys had a larger impact in the game than Jose Alvarado, Naji Marshall, Larry Nance Jr. It's a credit to this team's depth. It's a credit to those guys who have done it repeatedly all season long. It's wild to me that this is how it went. It doesn't seem like it should work. By the way, on the season, if you're looking at a differential for a player for team points scored per 100 possessions minus the team points allowed per 100 possessions. So what's the team's offensive rating when Jose is on the court versus the defensive rating? Jose leads this team by far at almost a +10. The next closest player is Trey Murphy at +5.7. Jose has a massive impact. He won them this game. Look, I said BI was going to be the key. I said they needed to have a big game from him. They needed to have a big game from CJ. CJ did not make that impact. BI had an up and down game in this one. We'll get into that more in the next segment here, right? CJ was just 3 of 8 for 7 points. It's a bad game. Brandon Ingram had 24 points and delivered when you needed him to, but there were some bad moments in there too. It was Jose, it was Naji, the unsung heroes, getting this team into the playoffs in the final chance that they had. Credit to those guys. Naji hadn't played for a couple of games. Jose thought he was going to be out of the league. Now they're taking this Pelicans team to the postseason when it looked like their season was on a brink. Give those guys so much credit. They were the heroes in this game. Let's look at Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas. Up and down games for both of them. Those were the 2 leading scorers for the Pelicans in this. But I didn't love some of the things you saw, and they need to iron some things out if you want to not get swept by the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's coming up here next in today's episode of a bonus episode, a live post-game reaction episode of Locked On Pelicans. Right now, though, I'm excited to tell you about Game Time. Were you at the game? Did you buy your tickets for this game on Game Time? Do you want to go to games 2 and 3? You're going to get a good deal over at Game Time. It can be tough buying tickets. You don't know if your seats are going to be good. You don't know if you're getting a good deal. Game Time takes the uncertainty out of buying tickets. I've used them for floor seats at Pelicans games to go. I've used them for Saints away games. I went to a game in SoFi where I got the tickets at a great price and with a discount from Game Time. And now Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Look, you don't need to worry about what the view is going to be. You're going to get the exact seats that you see on the Game Time app or on their web. And they have last minute deals if you're uncertain about games 3 or 4, which are going to be in New Orleans here against the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're going to have a flash sale or last minute deals. You'll probably save some money. And with the Game Time guarantee, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you buy tickets and then you see tickets in the same section and row for less. You have no reason not to buy your tickets for those games right now. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Be in that number for the Pelicans in the postseason here. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Use that for Pelicans playoff tickets. We just made it cheaper for you. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Monopoly Go, and I've been playing this a bunch right now. Part of it is I'm a competitive person. I like to go out and win. I wanted to see this team in the playoffs, and I heard some people saying, we don't want to see that. No, I'm competitive. We want to see this team compete, and I like competing in Monopoly Go. In Monopoly Go, you've probably heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not just one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. And the best part, you can mess with your friends. You can charge them rent on iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly. You can heist their vaults for riches. And the leaderboard showed me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. And by the way, I'm climbing on there. Look, if you don't believe me on this one, by the way, hold on. I'm going to pull it up and I will show you that I have it here on my phone. So it's not just me. You can team up with friends and play with people around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards, different things like that. So get in the game, join your friends, download Monopoly Go today. See, I'm not lying about this. And so download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. Monopoly Go. It's actually really fun. You're going to have a good time playing. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want. And look, we're going to have a great week of shows. I'm going to have a crossover with our Locked On host, Rylan Stiles, of Oklahoma, the Locked On Thunder podcast. You're not going to get that kind of perspective anywhere else. We're going to be recapping every game. We're going to look at Zion Williamson returning, the adjustments they're going to need to make from game 1 to game 2, 3, 4, all of those things. We're going to be covering it all here. So subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join almost 10,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. You don't want to miss the rest of the season of Locked On Pelicans here because the Pelicans are playoff bound. They did it. It was a little stressful at the end, but they got there, and that's ultimately all that matters right now. So I can't wait for these next 2 home games. By the way, if you're looking for a place to go watch the away games, Mid-City Yacht Club is going to have them for you with the Pels 12. If you're looking for something closer to the Smoothie King Center, NOLA Star Bar is also going to have them there as well. Make sure you hang out with Pelicans fans for all of the away games here. It's going to be a lot of fun. Playoffs, you never know what can happen in there, and they might get Zion Williamson back. Now, if they want to make it far enough to get Zion Williamson back, you're going to need bigger games from Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas, and CJ McCollum. CJ had a bad game, right? Now, they didn't need him as much, and he made a couple of crucial plays, as did Brandon Ingram, but it was a mixed bag from all of them. We're going to leave CJ out of this, and we're going to talk about him in a future show. But I want to focus on Brandon Ingram because this is the guy that needs to carry the team. For better or worse, fair or unfair, the load is going to be on his shoulders in the playoffs. It was on his shoulders going into this game, and it didn't look great in the beginning. He finished with a decent stat line, 24 points on 10 of 20 shooting, 50%, 1 of 2 from 3, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and a block too that was great. And it's some really good defense from him. And 4 turnovers. For the usage rate he had, 4 turnovers is okay in this game. But some of the shot selection, some of those mid-rangers, some of those tough shots were killing the Pelicans. How many times did he get blocked from behind in this one? 3 times? One time it worked out okay because it didn't end up getting called a travel and they got the ball back and scored on that possession. But it was a little bit tougher than it should be. Now, this is his 3rd game back from injury, so it's understandable. But if this team wants to go far in the playoffs, we need to see that Brandon Ingram that played against the Phoenix Suns. He didn't quite do that in this game. I will take 24 points. They don't win without him. Don't get me wrong. But you wanted to see this starting lineup come out and just rock the Sacramento Kings, and you didn't get that. The shot selection is way off. If Zion Williamson returns, they're going to need to shoot threes. They took 19 in this game. Brandon Ingram, this has been a thing all season long, needs to take more threes or be aggressive and get to the rim. And he seemed a little hesitant on that. There were a number of times where he drove into the paint and passed out of it. He only took 2 shots in the restricted area and none of them right at the rim. There were 2, one, part of it is like he can lay one in and he did. And the other one was a missed jumper, right? He needs to get into the restricted area and score more. I saw a lot of people wondering why the Pelicans didn't get to the line as much. Like, it's the refs, it's other things like that. No, they didn't get to the line as much because they didn't try and score at the rim enough. They got points in the paint because of easy dump-offs to players in the dunker spot. Larry Nance Jr., Jonas, Valanciunas, more on Valanciunas in a second here. Because it took them a little bit to figure out what to do with him in this game. And for a while, you're playing right into the hands of the Sacramento Kings. But Brandon Ingram has to be more aggressive. That mid-range jumper isn't how you're going to win. Yeah, that's what they're going to give you in the playoffs, but these were long mid-range jumpers. He took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots in the paint. That's it. 5 out of 20. 2 shots from 3. So that's 7 shots total. That's 13 shots from mid-range. Now, he did a good job of making those, but we've also seen games where he doesn't. That's what defenses want you to take. Don't play into their hands. A lot of y'all have said you need to start imposing your will on the team more, right? And not just being passive. Taking what the defense gives you is being passive, particularly because BI can get to the rim. Whether it's recovering from injury or what have you, he was passive in this game, missing some shots. Now, he makes them too. He shoots that mid-ranger about 50% of the time, a little bit less than that. That'll work for right now, but against an elite defensive team like OKC, that won't. You have to be aggressive and take the fight to them. You did not see that from Brandon Ingram in this game. Again, they don't win with him. I don't want to sound like I'm killing him in this, but you do need to be aggressive and try and get to the line against this 4th-ranked defense of the Oklahoma City Thunder. They are susceptible to fouling. They tend to do a lot, commit a lot of fouls and send you to the line. That's one thing they are not good at. But if you're passive, you take away one of their weaknesses and turn it into a strength, and you can't have that. They're 23rd when it comes to letting teams get to the free throw line against them. You need to be able to go out, force fouls, get to the line, but if you play for mid-range jumpers, that's not how it's going to go. You also need to figure out what to do with the center position. This has been a problem all season long for New Orleans, and in that first quarter, it looked like it was going to be a big problem. Now, OKC is not a great matchup for New Orleans because of the center position. They won the season series too. When you were looking at teams that you want to see New Orleans play, the Timberwolves, the Los Angeles Clippers, it's teams that don't concern you when it comes to the center spot, right? That is what OKC presents a challenge for. Larry Nance Jr. was great in this game. He hadn't been great previously. Jonas Valanciunas, I've long said, I don't think is the answer. And when you watched him in the first quarter where they tried to run it through him, which resulted in bad passes, turnovers, him missing shots going up against 2 guys down low, he had some points and he finished with a good game, right? 8 of 16, 12 rebounds, 6 offensive, 6 defensive, 19 points. He also had 3 assists in this. But 19 points on 16 shots isn't great. He was missing shots early when New Orleans could have been trying to run away with the game, which would have made this a whole lot less stressful. Stressful, not stressful, it doesn't matter. Winning is all that matters in the end here, right? But he didn't win his minutes. -4 in this game. The way you use Valanciunas is not by force-feeding him the ball. That means you're minimizing Brandon Ingram. You're minimizing CJ McCollum. You're minimizing Trey Murphy, right? You don't want to do that. use him in the dunker spot, which they did, but he was missing those shots because that's not how he plays. He's a post-up big in space, not when it's crowded down low. And when they stopped doing that is when things opened up for him a little bit, when they just kind of included him in the flow of the offense. More ball movement. When you post him up, it means other guys aren't cutting. It means he's just playing with his back to the basket, dribbling, trying to elbow his way in, and then putting up like a hook shot or something like that. There's no ball movement to that. That's how the Pelicans can win. When they're moving the ball around, when guys are cutting. That's why the Pelicans won the points in the paint battle, was off of those cuts. They won at 58-44 because guys were doing slot cuts, getting down low, off-ball cuts, baseline, whatever it might be, getting the ball and having an easy dunk because no one was around him because that defense was rotating. And in that first quarter, they were working way too hard on their offense. Way too hard on their offense. You can't do that. And now, I don't know if you can play Jonas Valanciunas as much. I don't think he's a good matchup with Chet Holmgren. Chet's skinny. Maybe he can post him up down low, but I think that's, again, going to play into what OKC wants. Let him. It kills time. It forces the pace to slow way down, which at times is good for New Orleans. But you need to find a way to use him effectively. They did it eventually just kind of in the flow of their offense, but it took them a while to get there and to do all of that. So you've got to kind of figure that out because that's their biggest weakness going into this game. Larry Nance Jr. is going to have a lot of trouble with Chet Holmgren, who can easily just shoot over him. One of the things you actually saw, though, in this game with Jonas Valanciunas was the Pelicans tailored their defensive coverage to his strength, knowing you kind of needed him out there for some of the rebounding, I think. You saw them play more drop coverage with him. Normally, they like to switch everything here. Everything is what they want to switch, right? Like a pick is set, you have Jonas switch onto the guard switch onto the big man. They didn't do that. They let Jonas play drop coverage, daring the Sacramento Kings to shoot. I don't know if you can do that as much against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are a very good three-point shooting team, literally the best in terms of three-point percentage at 39% this season. For whatever reason, I got no explanation for this one. The Kings cannot shoot. And I love this game plan because of it. They can't shoot threes against the Pelicans at all. They took 41 in this game. That's a big number. Pelicans took 19. You have a chance to lose that significantly. They shot 26.8%. On the season against New Orleans, I believe they've shot 33.3%. So they're making about a third of their three-point shots. That ain't a good number. That ain't a good number at all when they're a much better three-point shooting team than doing that. And the Pelicans just kind of knowing that that team does not shoot well against them for, again, whatever reason, and it's kind of wild that they just can't make threes against this team. 6-0 really says something here. You know, they played Jonas in drop coverage to take away the driving lanes, and that limited a guy like De'Aaron Fox, right? They forced him to shoot 16 threes. He was 4 of 6. You turn him into a three-point shooter, and that's how you win this game, and they did. It was a great game plan. When we did the crossover, the type of show you can only get on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and we'll have one with the Thunder. You know, Matt George, by the way, go to Locked On Kings and just leave a comment on the postgame show that says, like, good game. Matt George was here in New Orleans. He flew in for it to cover it. That dude is awesome. He's like one of my favorite hosts on the channel. Go leave a comment on his channel. Support him. Don't be a jerk about it. Just be like, good game. You know, best of luck in the off season. I think that would be a nice thing to do for the way they kind of lost 6 times in a row. Let's be good fans towards the Kings here. You know, he said the way you limit this Sacramento team is by limiting De'Aaron Fox getting into the paint. They did a really good job of that. They forced him into a jump shooter, shooting threes. He's not going to do that. 4 of 16 proves it. Playing drop coverage and taking that away and going, look, De'Aaron, we're going to give you that open three was a great game plan. That's on the coaching staff. That's on the coaching staff getting this team ready. For as maligned as the coaching staff has been this season, that's a great move. So not only was this a good win from the guys on the bench, but it also was from the coaching staff having the right kind of game plan as well for this one. Oh, it was stressful, though. It was stressful. They've got a couple of things to iron out. You need a better version of Brandon Ingram. You definitely need a better version of CJ McCollum. He can't do this again. He had been hot going into these final 3 games and then no-showed. That's not how you win, right? When he's hot, he's good. When he's not, it hurts the team, and you're going to need to make some tough decisions about that. It's wild when you think about it against the Lakers. And then we're going to get into Zion in the next segment here. We're almost there. I'm going a little bit long in this one. That in that almost comeback win over the Lakers, and they came close, right? I said it on my show. Zion, if he plays, they win that game. You benched CJ McCollum. You benched Brandon Ingram, and you benched Jonas Valanciunas. That's like $90 million worth of salary. CJ, who's making $36 million, was benched for a guy making 1.6. You gotta be better with that, right? Or better than that, right? CJ, he knows it too. He'll be the first person to own up to that. But those are the type of things, these performances from Brandon, from Jonas, from CJ, make me a little bit worried going into this postseason series. But things can be a little bit easier if Zion Williamson plays. Let's look at that coming up here next in today's bonus live episode. We got a lot of y'all in here. I appreciate it. Yeah, we'll do a bonus segment at the end of this. I'll explain how that works coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Right now, though, I'm excited to tell you about PrizePicks because PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more players' stats, and then you watch the winnings roll in. So if you think Jose Alvarado is going to have a big game again, you can take more or less, probably more, on his points projections. If you think Herb Jones is going to come out shooting hot from 3, you can take more on his 3-pointers, which is probably going to be 1.5 for game 1. So use that sports knowledge you have. And by the way, get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you and the world's best players take the game to a whole new level during basketball's postseason. And now you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Super simple to play. They have quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and enormous selections of players and stat types. It's what makes PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app. So download the app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's free money right there. A first-time deposit match up to $100 when you use promo code LOCKEDONNBA after you download the PrizePicks app. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast. We're going to have coverage you can't get anywhere else for the postseason. We'll have a crossover probably on Sunday morning, maybe late Saturday night for you with Rylan Stiles of Locked On Thunder. If you want to know more about that Thunder team, make your second listen Locked On Thunder today. Oh, by the way, the NFL draft is coming up. Locked On Saints with Ross Jackson, who's one of my favorite people in the world. And on the Locked On NBA or Locked On NFL channel, they've got a mock draft right now with all of the Locked On local hosts on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. So go check that out. Look, no one else can compete with the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join almost 10,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube. If you're in here and there's a lot of y'all and you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Let's hit 10,000 by the end of the postseason here for the playoffs. Look, Matt George of Locked On Kings said it after the game, and he tweeted it out, and I just retweeted it if you haven't seen it yet. He was impressed with the crowd here. He loved the energy, the passion. It was coming through, and for him to say that, a neutral party, right, says a lot about y'all and what you're capable of doing here, and you can influence this series. You can influence home court advantage. You know, that's going to be an important thing. So make sure you subscribe so that we can boost this team up as much as possible. Because look, we're in the playoffs here, and that's what we want. And now here's the biggest question, right? Look, the Pelicans are going to be underdogs in this series. Most experts are going to pick the Thunder. I'd be willing to bet in 5 or 6 games. 6 if you're being kind, but most are going to pick 5. But that changes, right? If one thing happens, and that's if Zion Williamson plays. He was there at the game tonight. He was sitting in the second row. Nice to see him with the team. It's been reported that when he left the arena after that loss to the Lakers, he wasn't limping. I do think it's worth noting that while hamstring injuries are tricky, this is a different leg than the one he suffered, the hamstring injury, which kept him out over 50 games last season. And Zion's been a different person this year. So I do think there's a very good chance that he could play. He's been a very different player this season by coming back from injuries quicker. He hasn't missed 2 consecutive games. Now, he will at this point in time because he's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks from that injury, which puts it at game 5 of this series. That doesn't mean that he's playing in game 5 or that he's going to be ready. It's just reevaluated. Then you need a ramp up and all of those things and what this team likes to do. So it makes it unlikely that he would play in a game 5. 6, 7, maybe a different story, but I think they're going to do everything they can to get him out there on the court. You don't want to do more long-term damage. The Pelicans, as they are, and there's some serious flaws, we've seen it, right? Leaving it until game 84, essentially, to make the postseason, aren't going to win a title. Look, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're going to keep it a buck here and keep it realistic. If you're not going to win a title, don't do anything that maybe damages Zion long-term. But he's come back from injuries quicker than we've thought this year. He's taking his rehab more seriously. This is, if there ever was a time that he was going to come back from injury sooner rather than later, this is the time that it would happen. I'm not ready to rule out that he won't play in this series. I don't think it's likely. But there is definitely a chance. And if the Pelicans can get 1 or 2 of these games in the first 4 to prolong this series, that's going to be their best hope for winning. You like this matchup more than you like Denver, right? There was a lot of talk. It was all a little bit of BS of should the Lakers tank? Is it better to lose that first play-in tournament game and then win the second one so you get OKC instead of the Oklahoma City Thunder? I mean, yeah, it was true. Now, look, you kind of get some of this and that you'll take that. It's fine. But it's unlikely that he plays in the series. But it's not over. And look, Zion at this point has been a different person this year. I'm not saying a different player. I'm specifically not saying that. I'm saying a different person. He's approaching things differently. He's more bought in than we've ever seen him before. I feel pretty good that maybe we can see him out there on the court at some point. If the Pelicans advance out of the first round, I'm almost certain then you'll see him again. It's going to take a lot of work. It's not going to be easy, but he can definitely do it. Years past, I wouldn't have said that. This year, with the way that he has been much more of a professional and everything you would have wanted from him, right, means it can happen. I'm excited. This is Zion's chance to shine and kind of prove, who he is as a player. It's a chance for all of these guys to prove who they are as a player. Brandon Ingram wants a huge $250 million contract. You got your chance to really earn it right now in the postseason. It's going to take more than what you did in this game. Jonas Valanciunas wants to prove that the Pelicans should be playing him more minutes, should have been playing him more minutes, maybe audition for a different team. You have a chance to do it right now, right? Jose wants to stick in the league for a lot longer. Continually having to overcome what he's done. He's got a chance to prove it. CJ has not had the postseason success that he wants either, right? With his long tenure with the Portland Trailblazers. You can do it this year. All of the opportunities are there for the Pelicans for the taking, and we're going to be covering it all here live, not always live, but on Locked On Pelicans. So that's going to do it. We're going to do a bonus segment here for Locked On Pelicans. So I'm going to hit the outro card here, and then we're going to continue live for a few more minutes. I'll interact with the chat for just a little bit. It's getting late here. It's after midnight, but I want to talk with y'all. So you're going to see me hit the outro card. Stick around, and it's only going to be available on YouTube. This is why you should watch the live shows and subscribe. So that's going to come up here next in a moment. So that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. Thank you all so much for listening. It's been a joy to be your host. I feel honored to be your host of this show. Not done yet. The Pelicans are in the postseason. We're going to have so much more coverage here. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. And I'll be back with y'all probably tomorrow with a crossover with Rylan Stiles of Locked On Thunder. All right, we're back for a bonus time here. Locked On Pelicans After Dark. This is when I'm finally going to look at the chat. I have not been doing that at all in this, as I wanted to get through the show. We had a lot to talk about. We have so much more to talk about as well, but we're going to go live for another 15 minutes or so. It's getting late. Y'all have other things you got to do, and we have so much more coverage here, so I don't want to burn myself out here. Zowie says Jake wants to hit the town, but he's giving us a bonus segment. Thanks, Jake. I do not want to hit the town. I want to go to bed. Let me ask you this. Here's this question. How stressed were you watching this game? That first quarter, were you guys okay? Were you guys okay? Because I wasn't okay during that first quarter. That was about as annoyed as I felt with how bad the Pelicans were just playing when it came to their offense. Hated it. And then they figured it out, and things got a little bit better here. But did they leave that a little more stressful than it should have been, getting around, especially late when all of a sudden it's like 10 points and all of those things here. So it was more stressful certainly than we wanted. If you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments here. I can see everything now. We got ABJ504 who says comment every single day here. I appreciate that. Jessica Anderson says playoff Pels. Heck yeah, they are in. And that's all we cared about. Didn't have to be pretty. They don't have to do much in the postseason. We just wanted some extra games here. All right, I see a question I actually like here, and that's K Beeswax. Jake, admit it. The Pels should get Tyus Jones, a true point guard that can protect the ball, organize the offense in tough times. I have long talked about the need. What I think would help them is a backup point guard. I don't think they need a point guard in the starting lineup. You have CJ, you have Brandon Ingram, you have Zion Williamson. There's bigger questions about their fit, but that has nothing to do with a point guard, right? If you run point Zion, point BI, there's no need for a point guard in that lineup. You need a point guard, a backup point guard, to be out there on the court when one of those guys is off the court. When you have Brandon Ingram without Zion, you need a point guard. When you have Zion without Brandon Ingram, you need a point guard. That's where Jose Alvarado steps in. That's a reason why, as I pull up his numbers here, he has a differential of plus 9.8, by far the best on the team. There's some evidence that they need that sort of point guard. It can be Jose, it can be someone else, but that's absolutely what they need, and they have it right now in Jose Alvarado, and that's the most important thing. You need a point guard when you don't have Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram out there on the court. Sebastian Zia says Pelicans could really use a CP3 homecoming. Yeah, if the price is right. But they don't have a ton of money to spend. They're going to be a little bit limited in free agency with what they can do here. So that's where things get a little bit tricky. But also that's a question for the offseason, right? You got to match up with OKC coming up here. And that's what we should focus on right now. Marquis Vegan says, you honestly don't think Val would cook Chet in the post in a playoff series when the game slows down, it's more physical? No, I don't. He's got great size. He wasn't unable to push Sabonis around. You've seen Chet Holmgren have greater size than that, but it also won't matter if he can't defend. And I don't think he's going to be able to defend Chet Holmgren. They're going to try. They're going to need him to, but I think the center position is a big problem for New Orleans. I don't think the answer is playing through JV Moore. The answer is not, I'll tell you, the answer is not Cody Zeller. It's not going to Larry Nance Jr. for 36 minutes. It's kind of a problem without an answer right now. So play JV Moore. Don't play Cody Zeller. That was dumb the other night. Play JV Moore because he's the better player out of some of those guys. That's what you need to do, but I don't think it's the answer. I think you try and win other games here. Wayne, is it Borneo says start Jose over CJ? No, absolutely not. You don't change the starting lineup, particularly without Zion, and you bring in Jose when you kind of need that extra run with things and that kind of jump off the bench. And the way they're using him is perfect, right? He's winning his minutes. That's the most important thing. Against starters, I'm not sure if that would be the case. Jose is underrated, but I don't know if you want to put him in the starting lineup. That might lead to those minutes not being nearly as effective. Rem0516 says Dyson at the 5. I think you'll see some of that when Chet Holmgren isn't out there, but I think against a dude that's that big, look, they're going to put Chet Holmgren on the perimeter and he's just going to shoot over guys, right? You need someone to at least kind of contest that or make him feel that. That's not going to be Dyson Daniels at 6'7" with everything here. Key says, I'm more worried about Josh Giddey. The key to kind of all of these games, right, particularly with the Oklahoma City Thunder, is to press the point of attack. Press the point of attack with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Don't let him get into the paint. Don't let him draw fouls. Let me pull up the numbers and I can see here, because I'd be willing to bet OKC draws the most, is one of the top teams, the Lakers, but one of the top teams at drawing fouls and getting to the free throw line because of what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander does. Oh, they're really not, actually. They're 17th. That's genuinely kind of surprising to me here with how he plays. Shai gets to the line, though, 8.7 times. He's getting into the paint, right? Okay, so it's just him and nobody else. Press the point of attack. Do what you did to De'Aaron Fox. Don't let him into the paint and turn him into a jump shooter, and that's how you're going to win. So it's going to be Dyson on him. It's going to be Herb Jones on him. Let Josh Giddey pass the ball around, right? He is a 33.7% shooter from three. Turn him into a jump shooter, right? If he beats you by making threes, which happened in New Orleans a time ago, you shrug, right? One of the things I always say here on Locked On Pelicans, and if you're an everydayer, you've heard this before, is process over results, right? Process over results. So if Josh Giddey beats you by making threes because you left him wide open and dared him to shoot, you live with that and you go fight another game, because that's not going to happen over the course of a series. In one game, maybe, but not over the course of a series. And that's what you have to start looking at. This is not about game one. It's about games 1 through 4. And how do you plan for that? And that's, I think, kind of what you are thinking about. And so, yeah, let Josh Giddey shoot. Who cares? He averages 12.3 points per game this season, right? If he's taking threes and he's making them 1 out of 3 times, that's a win for New Orleans. That puts him, let me see, where's Josh Giddey on this list? He's 14th. I don't know how many guys are still on the team here in terms of 3-point percentage. He's 14th on there. He's behind Shai. He's behind Chet. He's behind Lou Dort. He's behind Kenrich Williams. Kenny Hustle right there, right? Behind Cason Wallace, Trey Mann, Jalen Williams. By the way, they have 2 Jalen Williamses on this team, and it's a little confusing at times. One's good, one's a role player for them. J-Dub is the good one if you see someone like that. So you're going to see those sorts of things here in the playoffs. We're going to have more on this series. Like, you're going to want, this is what I mean by subscribe to Locked On Pelicans. No one else is going to give you the crossover that we're going to give you. If you watch that one with the Sacramento Kings, the way this game went down doesn't necessarily surprise you, right? In this game, De'Aaron Fox had 35 points. No one else really did much of anything. Sabonis had 23, but Keegan Murray was limited. Harrison Barnes was limited. They got nothing off the bench, just 12 points. Matt George of Locked On Kings, again, go to the Locked On Kings channel, leave a comment that says, like, great fight, guys. Sorry I had to go that way. Like, support him. He's an awesome dude. Support everyone on Locked On. He had said they need a balanced scoring effort, and New Orleans didn't let that happen. And that's how this played out in this game. We gave you that info beforehand. These crossovers, the stuff you get on Locked On Pelicans, the Locked On Podcast Network in general is pretty much unmatched when it comes to that, because we have the local experts with things here. So we'll have a lot more when it comes to this matchup in like a bonus crossover show with Rylan Stiles, who's a good dude, who's also going to be in New Orleans, which is really cool. So maybe we'll get some stuff here in the Smoothie King Center and all of that. Tommy Jones says, Pels have magnificent bench players. Yes, they do. But you need your starters to start playing better. You look, against the Kings, where you're 6-0, you can come back and beat them. You can have your bench kind of beat them, right? But against a team like OKC, which is the 1 seed, this team won 57 games. If your starters get run out, they've got some depth there too, right? Like, they're a good team. That's not going to be a great position to be in. You're going to need to not have your bench win the minutes for you. You need your starters to do more damage than they've been doing. That's going to be one of the keys to this. It's finding a lineup that really works in that regard with everything. And so, yeah, Joshua Johnson says, how will the playoff whistle affect Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's game? That's a great question. No idea, right? Everyone talks about the Oklahoma City Thunder being kind of an untested team. And yes, you are correct about that to an extent. But there is some playoff experience there, maybe more so than you realize, right? And one of those guys is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's made the playoffs twice with this team. It's been a minute. He made it in 2018, 2019 with the Clippers. He made it with the Oklahoma City Thunder in 2019, 2020, where he averaged over 16 points per game. He wasn't quite the same player that he is right now, which is an MVP candidate. But that was a year that he played relatively well, and they took it to Houston before losing in Game 7 by just 2 points. He can be a very good player. He had a 30-point game in that series. There's more playoff experience there, at least in their star player, than you may realize, even if it's been a moment. So don't rule them out as just this unexperienced team, and that gives the Pelicans an advantage, right? Yeah, the Pelicans have been there before. CJ has been there before. Brandon Ingram has that series against the Phoenix Suns, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has more playoff experience than Brandon Ingram does. Doesn't have more than CJ, but has more than BI, and that's who's got to carry this Pelicans team. So keep that in mind when you're looking at kind of this matchup here with everything. Rem0516 says Jose at the 5. Absolutely not. Absolutely not here. Keith says CJ is a postseason dud, period. Yeah, they need him to play better. They need him to play better, right? They need him. All right, hold on. Let me, don't spam the chat. That's how you just get put in timeout for everything here. Come on now. Zion, Zion, Zion. We talked about that. It's literally in the title, right? So we talked about Zion. If you missed it, go back and watch the third segment of this show here. Tommy Jones says CJ, JV, and Brandon have to play defense and change their shot selection. They are playing defense. They're all trying their best on defense. And Brandon Ingram has been a good defender this year. You know, when it comes to the shot selection, yeah, you do. You just need CJ to make shots. It's really as simple. Use him off ball more. Let him get pull-up jumpers against drop coverage when they sag off him. That's the way to use him. I actually thought him in a lower usage role in this game, while he didn't shoot or play particularly well, they kind of used him a little bit better, and it was just shots weren't really falling and he wasn't taking as many threes. You can kind of live with some of that. More threes would be better, but at least it wasn't him taking 20 shots this game and having a bad game. He only took 8, and that was definitely the move here, right? He was tied for fourth in terms of shot attempts. Only 2 players had fewer than him, Herb Jones and Larry Nance Jr. I guess Dyson, who barely played in this game. So I think they're going to kind of figure out the right roles. I actually really think that you're going to see a pretty good game plan from Willie Green in this series. I think he's been doing an above average job when it comes to it. And I don't expect them to make changes at the coaching position this offseason. So we're going to have more here on Locked On Pelicans. We'll have a crossover with the Locked On Thunder host, Rylan Stiles. He's literally texting me while I've been recording right now. So I'm going to get off here, set that up with him. So more to come. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And let's get to 10,000. That's the goal here. We'll do something fun, a bonus. We'll have some giveaways if we get to 10,000. So if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. If you have a friend that's not subscribed, get them clued into Locked On Pelicans, because no one else is going to have coverage here. We're the number one Pelicans, or no one's going to have the coverage that we have. We're the number one Pelicans podcast for a reason. So that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans with a bonus show here. Pelicans in the postseason. Shout out to all of you for being here, hanging out with me. We're pushing towards 1 a.m. here, and that would be a lot of fun. I see someone asking about another in-person show. We'll see. The timing might be a little bit tough with some of these games. Who knows? It's going to be a lot of fun. I appreciate you all riding with me all season long. It means the world. I am truly honored to be the host of the show for this fan base. Not done yet. Look, not saying it's going to be great in the postseason. Ain't going to be bad. And we're going to cover it all here on Locked On Pelicans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'll see y'all tomorrow with a crossover episode at some point, maybe a little bit more too, here on the Locked On Pelicans podcast.